Hey guys, it's Palmy here. Just another Call of Duty commentary channel. Just like everyone, I got 2 cents to add. I just think there's a lot of rules and regulations we really need to get on due to many emerging technologies out there. And I'm sure you already know what I'm talking about just from that. That is artificial intelligence or AI. The way it's being handled and the potential for how good and bad everything can go. Just, it's enormous. It's enormous. And, well, I think this should be a tier 1 issue in most people's minds. And I don't know if it's being treated that way. Like, policy needs to be passed, and really, everyone is going to be affected by it. So, just seems like it is a tier 1 issue, and it definitely is. So, I guess, I decided I think I need to talk about some of these things. Not because I'm going to change anything individually, but that's how things get changed. Everyone just kind of starts passing it along. So, doing my part and sharing what I can. Let me just say that AI itself isn't a problem. I don't know if you've heard it, the nerd in my voice, but I like the subject. It has a lot of potential to do a lot of good. It's just the wrong people are in charge of where this is going. And it's being pushed in places it shouldn't. It's not ready for a lot of the things that these tech CEOs are telling you it's ready for. And if you pull back the curtain, you can see that in many places you're being gaslit. This gaslighting just artificially increases a company's stock value, constantly dangle the promise of artificial general intelligence in front of everyone's faces to distract them from the fact that the current product doesn't do anything like what they promise it will do. That's not to say AGI won't happen, but a lot of the things you hear about these large language models for most companies are exaggerated, saying that they're PhD level in every subject. It's there to make you think that you need their product more than you do. It's promised to give basically infinite potential in the end, if it doesn't go terribly wrong. But either way, because if it goes right, I don't think a lot of people like that scenario either. It's just going to be rammed down your throat regardless. Regardless of if you want to potentially have a Terminator future in one scenario, but in the other, where everything goes right, and there's an age of abundance, and either you're the machine's pet, or you upload your consciousness with it. Ah, that was sick. Right, correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds kind of shitty. It just all kind of sounds shitty. Like, why are we doing this? It just, that's a little far-fetched, I think, to say in the next few years. It's turning out throwing more data at these large language models doesn't achieve the predicted goals that they thought they would get, which anybody who kind of was paying attention to the technical side of things, what the tech people had to say, they were saying this the whole time. It's just, there's so many misleading just headlines that get fed on a more massive scale. So it's just a lot of misdirection. And that alone just shows that if you're doing that, you shouldn't be in charge of making something that could potentially end all life. It's just kind of obvious. As of now, the real danger of AI is how stupid it is. How it lacks real judgment. It's read that question in the textbook that it knows. It just has a profoundly gifted memory, basically. An extreme idiot savant. But, the thing is I think everyone should be more mad about what's going on. Promising these machines will bring us an age of abundance, but as soon as they come into the picture, real human beings start getting laid off. Not because they're going to do a better job than you, they're going to do it cheaper. And, karma's a bitch, because it turned out in most of these cases, it didn't work out that way. A whole mess was made. Customer service, it's like 90% of the calls are routine, 10% aren't, but 90% of the time are spent on 10% of those calls. These large language models regurgitate, and so they don't work well in the edge cases. They don't innovate. They're not going to do what these tech CEOs say they're going to do. I think we're going to need something else, at least. We don't have enough data to really train them to this level that they're suggesting, because at the PhD level, there's not a lot of training data on the frontiers of knowledge. You can gaslight GPT into basically anything. It's going to know Newton's second law, but bring up some more exotic physics, and it's basically just trying to match similar related words that it's read somewhere else. No real understanding of the abstract concept. Not to say that can't be useful, but back to the fact that you're being replaced just because they're cheaper. And it's like that age of abundance you're promising in the future. When they make abundance now, you don't share it. You take it to make a bigger profit. But it's just like one shitty layer after another, because then you look under the hood and it's like, oh shit, I guess there's reports of the tech sector kind of decaying within for a while. Overbloated mismanagement of some sort. AI is a convenient scapegoat there, because it makes AI seem a lot better than what it is, inflating that stock price, and now you get to pay less employees. In fact, a lot of these companies apply for visas, 1.5 times the number of employees that they lay off, something like that. It's just like, okay, so they're getting more offshore workers that they can undercut and pay less. It's like, and then what are they doing here? They're making these big data centers in people's backyards that are just hoarding electricity and water so that we can make these robots that will just replace us. But they promise when we get there to AGI, at that point, bro, at that point, abundance. Just 100 billion more. Just 100 billion more dollars. That's it. Trust me, bro. That's basically it. It's a no-brainer why a lot of these tech CEOs are now some of the most hated members of society. There's just a general disdain for them. Anthropic being better than the rest, but it's just people don't want this future. By and large. And here is where I want to just kind of veer off and talk about maybe a solution, because these large language models are huge. They have a lot of parameters. And if you don't know what that means, it's basically a bunch of dials and knobs. You can set a dial to a lot of values, and you just kind of tinker with that until it spits out what you want. That's all you do in the training process. Tinker all those dials until it spits out the right sentence or something like that. Real oversimplification, but trillions of knobs. So with such a large number, you can put a lot of settings. Kind of crazy how it works out like that, but if you have a narrower intelligence, so a neural network that is much smaller, like in the millions of parameters, 1,000 times smaller, it's just like you could make a model that outperforms the more general model in a specific task. You don't need to make these big data centers, and well, then we can just develop a lot of algorithms to do their own thing. It just seems like it would make more sense, because if you have an algorithm that's just good at one thing, like just good at suggesting syntax in coding, like maybe that is less likely to be able to take over if you're making it good also at like hardware in computers, and then also chemical engineering, and then security, cybersecurity, making it know everything. It just, you'll be able to keep it under control better. We won't need to make these massive data centers that are just hoarding all these resources. And I think that's the number one issue, the alignment issue. It just, instead of charting in these unpredictable territories, it seems more sensible to stick with using a more practical model. But that's the problem with human nature. Greed is what drives so many people to do what they do, and that's what I think's happening here. It's not being driven by just innovation, greed and power. So, I don't know. Like the rate that things are gonna be developing, you never know what's gonna happen in the end. But a whole different issue is current AI is probably more dangerous for how stupid it is rather than how smart it is. But I think at this point, I'm just gonna leave it there. I think there's solutions to these problems, sensible solutions that seem to have a payout that is equal to or greater than what we're going towards. Less risky, less pollution because smaller models, and really in general we should just really not be happy about this future we're being thrown into. You picking up the bill for the extra electricity that these large language models are hoarding as these tech CEOs keep trying to convince you need it. Lying to you, giving you false sort of information, misleading you into thinking it's smarter than it is. It's all just shady. It's just, yeah, don't hate AI though. Don't hate AI. AI isn't your friend, but it's not necessarily your enemy. So, I think that's what I'll sign off on. If you made it this far, thanks for listening, and in the future video I'll go into more details. I just kind of want to talk through just some general sort of bullshit going on. I'm sure you know about a lot of it, but the more people talk, the more something happens.